Okay, so in the last session, we discussed about arranging different memories, right, and how it influences the final design, right? And we also discussed one example where the same 1K requirement, 1K bits requirement memory, if we arrange it in one order, how many external pins we require, and we arrange it in other way, how many external pins we require, right? And we also discussed it multiple times. Providing one external connection is definitely cost influencing, right? So we have to reduce the requirement of external pins as much as possible. And one other way is sometimes we go for multiplexing, right? When one pin is not required, when two or multiple pins are only if they are mutually exclusive in functions, right? Otherwise, you cannot multiplex. But if multiple functions or control signals are mutually exclusive between in the group, then we can combine them and assign it to one pin, right? One such example we discussed is the read or write control signal, where you can see that both are mutually exclusive. When you do one operation, definitely no way of doing the other, right? So we use the same control, we use the same pin to give both the control signals, right? Either read or write. So we are further going to continue the same, like most of the time you will have a requirement, right? Depends on the application and the specifications given. Sometimes based on the technical specification we will have a requirement, but do we have the availability of whatever is our requirement becomes the question, right? Always whatever we required may not be readily available. If it's available, then there is not much work for the engineers, right? But engineers are required because solution providing is required at different places at different time points, right? So in the memory also the same holds, where we may be in requirement of one memory spec, but that memory spec won't be available or existing, right? So because of its non-availability, we cannot state simply that it won't be possible to come up with that spec or meet that spec. Okay, obviously engineers are solution providers. That means we should be able to find out a way to come up or meet these specifications and the requirements. So one such arrangement is what we are going to discuss now. We may be in requirement of one spec of memory which may not be available. In that case, we should be able to come up with the specification with available memories, right? So how do we design, right? And what are all the possibilities available, and how do we put together, right? It's all just an initiation for you to get started. So when you enter into real problem, you will have the idea and you will have the clear thought that always the finding a solution is possible, right? So static memory is mostly used for the main memories, right? And when we say static memories, it's as long as there is a power supply, it's all volatile memories. So as long as there is a power supply, you will be able to access, you will be able to hold the data. Once there is no power supply, the data, we lose the data, right? So I said it's all volatile. So we have to ensure that as long as we require that data, either power is provided, or if we are not sure about it, move the data from the static memories to other permanent storage devices, like either the secondary memory or into the ROM, right? These static memories or the main memories provide mostly used for the primary memory, right, where speed will be definitely better than the secondary memories, right? And naturally the cost also increases, right? Per bit, how much you have to spend, that cost also increases. Okay. So most of the cases, the primary memories, like I said, you implement with transistors only, and the transistors has been implemented with CMOS logic, right? And earlier it was with TTL logic, where the supply you have to provide definitely of 5 volt, right? But when it is the CMOS logic, you have the advantage of going even with the low voltage range of 3.3 volt is sufficient, right? So that means naturally the power dissipation will be less, and the switching speed you can increase. All those possibilities are higher when you go with CMOS logic with the low voltage version of 3.3 volt, rather than where the TTL logic, transistor logic, definitely requires minimum 5 volt. It cannot operate below that. Okay. And nowadays, again, this is advanced to the next level of nanotechnology, where each of the features, when we say features here, it's the basic component which we are going to fabricate in the IC, and those features are nowadays dealt with the nanoscale range rather than the millimeter and the other sizes. Okay. So that is how we end up with reduced power also. And if you have learned CMOS logic, for each component, we have to ensure that one PMOS and one NMOS is there, one P transistor combination and one N transistor combination. I don't know whether you have come across with the basics of CMOS. You want to discuss the basics of it, we can do it during the discussion session. But for everything, you should remember that you should tell me what you want it. Otherwise, whatever you want to spend time on it, you should tell me, right? So, like I said, in case of this CMOS logic, the access time is very quick because of the switching ability we are able to provide for the transistors. So it's typically in the nanoseconds, and I already told you it can vary from 10 nanoseconds to 100 nanoseconds. Depends on how the, what is the basic fundamental component you use for fabricating each of the features, right? So this main memory or the static memory we use wherever we worry about the speed. For example, we go for the main memory because the the secondary memory, that's the like hard disk, which is not compatible with the speed of the processor. So cannot directly connect the hard disk with the processor for operation, because high speed processors cannot be served with the low speed memories, where idling time of the processor will be more. Either we have to increase the speed of the memory to match up, compete with the speed of the processor, or rather than going for that high speed and high end processor, you can replace it with the slow speed processors. Okay, so here what we are going, then in that case, no meaning of designing a high speed processor at all. Okay, so what we are trying to do here is to compete or bridge the gap between the secondary memory and the processor speed. Okay, by providing the main memory. So wherever the speed is of critical concern, we go with the concept of the main memories, and one is the static memory, right? Not always with static memory. One is the static memory, and we'll be learning other like if yesterday I pointed out that some memory cell may have single transistor, some may have even up to 6 transistors in one memory cell. Okay, so in that case, when you require more number of transistors, naturally the dissipation will be more. Okay, So what is the solution to reduce the number of transistors required for every memory cell? One is the dissipation will be more, and the second will be in the same area of the IC, you won't be able to accommodate more number of memory locations, because each memory cell requires 6 transistors. In that case, naturally, I mean 4 or 6 or 2, depends on what type of static memory it is. So we have to provide, I mean, even if it is possible, achieving higher memory size in the same area, if we are going to use a static RAM, it is fast, but achieving the higher capacity or achieving the lower power dissipation may not be possible. Okay. So the solution to the problems we are having in static RAM is, we need a less expensive and higher density RAM, right? Main memory, static RAM is good when compared with the primary memory, I mean secondary memory. But if there is a possibility of increasing further, right, then we should always strive for the best. So if we can able to bring it to less expensive and higher density possible, then we should definitely look for it. Okay. And that's where the solution is the dynamic memories, right? What you use nowadays are all DRAMs, right? If you know what you are having inside your PC or inside your lap, right? So dynamic memories are, the advantages are very simple memory cells, right? The construction of each and every memory cells are very simple, and they can retain the state. All the volatile memories, I told you, as long as power is there, it will be having the data, right? But we have to refresh it periodically, right? And in this case of DRAM, that period is higher when compared with the SRAM. So it can retain the each and every bit stored for little bit longer time when compared with the static RAM. So all we have to do is refresh it periodically, right? And try to hold the data, right? And when it is a frequent read or write operation, naturally the data happens to be retained, right? This is required because in case of a dynamic memory, the information stored is only in the form of a charge on a capacitor, right? And we know that the capacitor will discharge over a period of time the charge stored in the capacitor. So naturally we get to ensure once it goes below the threshold, we have to ensure that we refresh it and bring it back to whatever charge it has been, right? So that the stored data will be there whenever you need the data, right? And the charge, whatever the charge you store it can be retained for some milliseconds, right? And so when we use the dynamic memory, we have to ensure that depends on how many milliseconds the charge can be maintained. We have to refresh it, and for refreshing, if it is the memory where frequent read or write won't happen, then naturally we provide a separate circuitry, right? Refresher circuitry to do this refreshing work periodically, right, to its full value. So that's the main difference between the static memory and the dynamic memory. And when we say static there, the data is not going to be like permanently stored like ROM, okay, but the stored data will be there as long as power is there. But in case of a dynamic memory, since it uses a simpler memory cell where it uses a capacitor to store the value in the form of charge, we have to refresh it periodically. Otherwise, once the charge goes up, the data stored will be, we will be losing the data, right? If the charge stored represents 1 and if the capacitor charge goes off, we may be reading it as 0 rather than the actual value, which is supposed to be 1. Okay, so those kind of confusions will raise. Okay, that is why we call this as a dynamic memory, right? So we have to refresh it periodically, right? Hope you get the difference between the static memory and dynamic memory clearly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and when you complete the assignment, you will know how the internal structure of the memory cells. So you will understand that once you see the internal system, you will understand these points very clearly, right? So all this I just explained you, right? And the typical time duration for which the charge can be maintained vary from 2 milliseconds to 16 milliseconds, right? And depends on the ability of the dynamic memory. We have to plan and design the refresher circuit, right? So once we complete the design of the dynamic RAM, we will know what is the time it can hold the data, or it can hold the charge, right? So once we know that till what time it can hold the data without losing it, then we go with the refresher circuit. Depends on the time we found out during the design phase. And the refresher circuit automatically, once designed throughout its lifetime, it will be continuing the work of refreshing the data in the specified period. Okay. So sometimes the refresher circuit can be incorporated in the memory IC itself, right? Where those cases we refer the chip as the pseudo static, because it's not a static RAM. But when you look at from the outside, since the refresher circuit is inside the IC itself, RAM IC itself, when we look at from the outside, we feel that the memory functions like a static memory. Okay, so we call this as a pseudo static, right? Very widely used dynamic RAM. Nowadays, all RAMs are SRAM and all. It's been long back, but still we are. You are supposed to know how the evolution and the changes are possible, right? For that purpose, we get you in. We introduce you to that part, that aspect of the design also, right? But nowadays, everything is replaced with DRAMs, dynamic memory, right? Because of the same two reasons we started discussing, that it can provide high density at low cost. That's the beauty of it, right? So we discuss, we come to this design later, right? There is also called a synchronous DRAM, right? And different DRAMs you can come across with, right? Earlier it was SD RAM, and now DDR is most widely used, right? So in case of a synchronous DRAM, DDR is also synchronous only. So in this case, whenever you know the word synchronous, what it conveys in the circuit design, can anyone tell me?
Ma'am, for each instruction execution, it will be synchronized with the crystal oscillator.
Synchronized with the? Okay, sure, I'm not
Crystal
able to get
oscillator,
the clear oscillator. Okay.
Ma'am,
So
for
asynchronous and synchronous circuit, the main difference will be the are you people able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The instruction from Teams is that my network is bad. I'm in college Wi-Fi, so in between I'm not able to hear what you people are saying. Kishore, can you repeat once?
Ma'am, in synchronous, each instruction will be executed for a single clock cycle. But in asynchronous, asynchronous, an instruction can take place for more than one process.
Okay, so correct. The basic difference here is in synchronous circuit, every operation either to initiate or to stop. Everything is based completely on the clock pulse you give, right? To start an event or to stop an event. That's what we say here. Every trigger, right? Either it can be starting an event or stopping an event. Every trigger is based on the clock pulse provided. But in case of an asynchronous, you simply use the control signals, and based on the status of the control signal, you trigger the event to start or to stop, right? Any way you want it. So there the control signals we call sometimes as the handshake signals, right? Where once there is a session or communication established between two devices, they can communicate and continue whatever the operation needs to be done. Okay. So here again, when it is synchronous design, naturally every operation is directly controlled by the clock signal. So when it's the starting of one pulse, what operation should start and when it should stop, everything is based on the clock. And sometimes it provides different modes of operation also, because in this case, naturally at one clock pulse, you enable only certain set of signals and wait till the certain defined period of time to stop it. All this sometimes will be ending up with, if we feel that this much amount of time is not required or control is not required, once the operation is established, then for that case, different modes of operation provided, where that is what we call it as, it can work in burst mode also. For example, once you provide the bus for data transfer between two devices, you need not say every time the data has to be sent in which direction. Once it is established, it's between those two devices till it gets the complete required data. Like that also you can optimize, right? So here is one simple arrangement shown where the coordination has to be done between the systems, right? And to coordinate, we will have the memory management unit or the interfaces, where the signals won't be directly, whatever signals given from the processor may not be directly compatible with the system on the other side. Okay, so sometimes you have to interpret and give it as two signal. For example, when you are having single signal reader right here, when you give it to the memory, you may have separate read signal and separate write control. Okay, so for that we need not load the processor for doing it. We can have a memory management unit and or the interfacing memory interface to handle these kind of smaller operations. Okay, and same way when we have when we give the addresses and we arrange it in optimized way of number of rows and columns, right? We like we discussed in the previous case, we give the row address first and select the row, and then we give the column address first and then select that column, and whatever is the data depends on whether it's single bit or a byte or multiple bytes, that will be sent to the data bus through the input register or through the output register. That's the sense and the write. Here we separated. Output is the sense and sense circuit, and input is the write circuit here. Okay. So these things, the processor need not sit and do all these coordinating job, right? Where we can go with a separate memory interface. So when we give the row address, right, we enable the row address select. Okay, so only that address bits given here decode the row, right? Same way when we give the once the row has been selected, to give the column address, what are the bits supposed to be read from the selected row, we give the column address select, right? Both of this are active low signal, right? Because it's bar, right? Row select RAS bar and CAS bar, right? So then the column decoder, only the address bits corresponds to the column, right? In the previous design, you can see that, you can see here that few address bits given for selecting the row and few address bits given for selecting the column. Okay, so for this control, what address bits to be given to which part of the circuit and at what point of time. Okay, that enable can be through row address select and column address select, right? And chip select reader write control is required for every IC you use, write memory IC. And here, since it's in synchronous RAM, you will have a clock signal also addition to trigger every operation required. Okay, so and since it's DRAM, dynamic RAM, you also know that the value should be periodically refreshed. So we have a refresh counter which once the time lapses, it enables triggers and refresh the value once again, whatever stored in the memory here, right? And once the particular row or column, once the particular row has been selected, that has been given for reader write circuit or latch, where the in the selected row only the particular bits will be selected and given through the input register or through the output register to the data bus for getting the information. Okay, so most of the cases, all these operations are initiated during the racing edge, right? Every operation, when you want to go for next reader, when you want to initiate next control signal, everything will happen in the racing edge of every clock pulse, right? But in case of DDR, right? DDR, which is the most commonly used RAM memories nowadays, right? If you are not aware of it, taking out your RAM is not a big deal. There will be only a small opening at your back of the laptop to access RAM alone, right? Without accessing any of the other touching other important component, right? There will be opening to access RAM alone. You can simply unscrew it open and see what memory you are having exactly in the what memory you are using, right? Mostly it is all replaced with DDR, right? And the advantages of DDR is it's the synchronous DRAM only, and a higher version of SDRAM in case. Why we say higher version is this DDR itself stands for double data rate, right? I said all the operations will be initiated during the racing edge, right? All read or write. But in case of DDR SDRAM, we call it as double data rate because all you can initiate the operations both at positive as well as at negative edge. That means during positive clock pulse, one data you can read and write, and during negative clock pulse, one data you can read and write. And you know, any clock pulse will comprise both one positive clock pulse and one negative clock pulse. Okay. So in case of normal SDRAM, you do initiate one reader right here and another reader right here, right? Whereas in case of DDR SDRAM, you initiate one reader right here, next reader right in the negative clock pulse beginning, right? During the negative clock pulse beginning, and next reader right during the positive clock pulse beginning. So third reader right will happen here, and next reader write you will be doing during the negative clock cycle of the second clock pulse, which where the fourth reader write will take place here. Okay, so when you compare within two clock pulse itself, in the first case only two reader write operation is able to be completed in case of normal SDRAM, whereas in case of DDR SDRAM you will be able to do four reader write operations with the memory, right? That's why we call it as the double data rate, because we do the operations at both positive as well as at the negative edge. Okay. So just take some time and try to digest the information on the board. I mean on the slide. Once you have understood it, please let me know. And you want me to repeat any point also, please let me know. Any doubt? Are you guys going through?
One more.
Okay. So you guys have to be interactive because this is not a classroom where I can see your face and detect what's actually you understood or not. Once if you speak up, I know whether to continue or explain something here or wait for you to digest all that. Okay. So whenever we speak about memory, we already discussed two times, right? One is the memory access time, another is the memory cycle time, right? Here again, we have to consider two more parameters. One is the memory latency, right? That is the time it takes to transfer a word or data whenever you require to the memory or from the memory, right? How much time it takes to do the transfer? Okay, that's the memory latency. Latency is always the delay in something, right? That's how we define it. So here the time taken, right, from the request till the time it takes to transfer the data as the delay from the processor side when you look at it, right? So that's memory latency. And another parameter is memory bandwidth. That is how many number of bits or bytes you are able to transfer, right, in 1 second, right? So that also specifies the speed of operation. So these two parameters also we look into whenever we define the memory spec, right? These are all will be useful to decide whether for that particular operation, can you choose that when you have a set of memories, which memory you can choose for that particular operation, right? That will be these parameters will help you to narrow down on the requirement and the what you can choose so for your requirement in the available set. Okay. So we complete this design and then go back to the earlier slide one which I skipped, right? Because that's the next level to this. So if we straight away start there, you may not be able to get it, right? So what we require is actually 2 mega locations of word size 32, right? This is the required. But what we have is number of chips with the capacity of 512K into 8. Okay. So the required memory is size requirement is 2M, right? And word size of the required memory is 32-bit, right? But the available memory is with each chip of having 512K, right? And word size of 8. Okay. So whenever we require something and the availability is something, we have to match both. The size also we should be able to match, and the size of the capacity of the memory also we should be able to match, and the word size also we should be able to match. Okay. When the required, we have to look at the required as well as the available, right? If we look at the in terms of the capacity, the required memory size is 2M, whereas the available memory size is only 512K, right? So naturally, with the single 512K, we won't be able to achieve 2M locations required. Okay. So in that case, how many such 512K memories I require to come up with? Uh, 1 second. So you people tell me how many such memories I'll be requiring to come up with the with the available 512. If I want to have 2M, how many such memories I'll be requiring, or how many such chips I have to use to come up with the 2M size? Yes, the requirement is 2 mega locations, and the available size available memory size is 512K. So if I use only one such chip, all I get is 512K only. So how many such chip I have to use to get 2M locations?
4 chips.
Excellent. So we need 4 chips. So if I use 4 chips, I'll be able to achieve 2 mega locations with 4 512K chips, right? So one criteria is satisfied. The other thing I require is, if I am using only 4 chips, what is the size of memory I would have achieved? Like if Kishore said, I used only one, I use 4 512 K. I'm using 4 chips of spec 512 K into 8, right? So in this case, what is the actual size of the memory I would have achieved?
Ma'am, it's 4M.
4M. So the resultant memory spec, can you give? Always when we say memory spec, it's supposed to have the capacity as well as the word size. Not 4M, 2M. 2 chips will end up with 1M and 4 chips will end up with 2M, right? It's 512. So 2 chips when you go with, you'll be getting 1024K 1024K locations, and when you go with 4K, 4 chips, you will be ending up with 2048K locations. So 2M you would have achieved. But anytime when you say memory, 2 parameters should come in picture, right? The capacity as well as the word size. So the capacity is here. What is the word size of the end result? Can anyone?
Is it 8?
Word size, I would have achieved only 8 here, right? What's my requirement? Is this my requirement? 2m into 8? The answers are visible on the board, right? What is my requirement? Naganandini.
Ma'am, we can't see the screen.
Can't change what? Okay, slide share is not there, sorry. So the requirement we started with, Naganandini, are you there? Naganandini? Yeah, she is there. Okay, can anyone tell me what is the requirement and what we are having? Is the resultant is what we require?
We need 32.
We need 32 what? You think Srivachan speaking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we need 32 what? What's the 32 you're saying?
What says?
Word size requirement is 32 bit and our resultant memory word size is? What's our resultant memory word size?
8.
4 chips. 8. Okay, so what we are supposed to do? We have achieved 2m location and we also have to ensure that word size is also what is what is the resultant word size should be equal to the required word size. Resultant word size is only 8 whereas the required word size is 32. So that means in every location when we access, what we have to ensure? We access only 8 bit or
We have to access 32 bits in the
we have to access 32 bits. So what we have to do whenever the same for a same address, we should be able to access 4 bytes rather than single byte. So in that case, what we have to do, in every location address, instead of accessing one 8 bit, we have to use 4 chips, right? So the same address will be given to all the 4 chips whenever the address is given. So one 8 bit you get from one chip, next 8 bit you get from next chip, next 8 bit you get from next chip, and next 8 bit you get from next chip. Okay, so each of the box you are seeing here is actually a memory of whatever we are having, that is 512K into 8. Okay, so now how many such 512K into 8 memory chip we require to come up with our requirement? To meet up our 4 for each word 4 chip, right? And we already know that to meet the capacity we need a 4 memory chip, right? So what is the total number of required 512K into 8 memory chip? Again, the answer is on the picture itself, right?
16.
16 memory chips we will be requiring. So the first thing we have to decide is the number of ICs we require, right? Whatever we are having, the available IC, how many such ICs will be required, right? That should be decided based on the capacity as well as the word size. Okay, so we know that for capacity we need 4 chips, and for word size in every row we need 4 chips. Okay, so that means 4 rows and 4 columns, we will be ending up with 16 chips, right? So we have to find out how many number of chips required, and then to access 2M locations we will be requiring how many number of address bits. But to access 512K, we require how many number of address bits? So how are we going to map the address bits whenever we try to access the memory in the out of these 16 chips? That is the mapping we have to provide. Okay. So can see that to access 2M memory locations, we require 21 address bits. As to access 512K, we require totally 19 address bits, right? You can calculate, it is all powers of 2 only, so you can calculate. So what we do is the lowest 19 address bits we give to all the ICs in the same row. Okay, so that you instead of 8-bit you always get to access 32-bit with the same address. Okay, and remaining 2 more higher bits we use to select which row has to be selected, where always the first row will have the first lower 512K address, and next row will have next 512K address, and next row will have next 512K address, like that. Okay, so this we use for chip select. This line what you are seeing here is the chip select, and same line, same control line used for every chip in the row. That means the same for that given address, all the 4 chips you can access with the same lower order address. So you get to access to 32 bits. From each you get 8-bit. So totally you get 32-bit, right? So here you get 1 8-bit, here you get 1 8-bit, here you get 1 8-bit, and here you get 1 more 8-bit. Okay, so first we have to find out the number of chips required and in what arrangement we are going to do it. For example, if instead of 2M into 32, if it's 2M into 16, then all we require is only 2 columns, not 4 columns. So in that case, it will be only 8 chips rather than 16 chips, right? So we have to find out from the given capacity and word size with the available memory capacity and word size, how many number of chips required, and how do we map the address bits. Once we are done with that, the required memory size is ready, even if it is not available. Okay, so just take a minute to understand the design, and not clear at any point, please raise. Any doubt in this?
No, ma'am.
Are you sure all of you understood how do we, what is the requirement, what is the availability, how do we achieve the required one with the available number of So, I mean, with the available IC.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, our next class discussion will be again with now we are having 2M in